You know, there's just something about handcrafted or handmade goods that hits on so many other levels, and you can appreciate it so much more because somebody has taken the time to learn a craft and have put countless hours to learn things and perfect them and make something out of nothing by hand. And they're not using some gigantic industrial machine, you know, whether it be a leather craftsman, a cobbler, a blacksmith, a tailor, or maybe even somebody who's like a baker, you know, local farmers markets, whatever the case may be, you can just appreciate it so much more because it's coming from the little guy. It's coming from the guy that started off with very bare minimum tools, and of course, you know, you work your way up the ladder with equipment and you upgrade your stuff. Of course, that's just how it happens. But until said craftsman or tradesman or baker or what have you, until that said person gets to the level of having the tools that makes life so much easier and time fly by quicker, they're using their hands, their elbow grease, you know, they're using the blood, sweat, and tears that they have to create such things. Like my buddy Chris, he created this wallet, this key fob, both made out of leather, and this is his Enzo Stealth. It's from his store called Golden Owl Supply Company, and he sent me this because he's just a great guy, you know, and I'm blown away, you know. I've never had something that was handcrafted before like this, and I don't know if you're watching this, Chris. If you are, kudos to you. You probably picked your fingers a lot with this, but yeah, this is sick. But anyways, what's going on? My name is Mikey Olexy. Welcome back to another video. And today I wanted to share a little tip or trick that can help you take your product photography from here to here. And the best part is that it's fairly inexpensive. Now, speaking of gear and how it enhances your workflow, it really depends on the scenario. And that is the key phrase right there. Depends on the scenario. What are you doing? What is the project? Is it something that is massive, or is it something that you can just do here in like a home office? And this is where, especially who are starting out, a lot of people get this big misconception that you need, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of cameras and lenses and tripods and lighting and stands and audio and drones and gimbals, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And it just depends on the scenario, depends on the project. And every piece of equipment has its time and place. And even with backdrops, you know, I've seen people go out and spend hundreds to thousands of dollars on backdrop gear to set up in their office or their studio, what have you, and use it for portraits and product stuff and modeling. And of course, it has its time and place, which I'm not downing on. But when it comes down to having a budget, but still wanting great photos, it's still achievable. All you gotta do is be creative and think outside of the box. Now you can go to your local Walmart, Target, or crafting store and pick up a couple of these. This is a foam core, foam board, poster board, whatever, and you can use this for a backdrop. You can use it as something to do some flat lay stuff on, so you can lay it down on the table, and then you can put stuff down on the poster board and you have yourself a nice background. Or what you can also do is be creative and cut a slit in it as a way to manipulate the light onto your subject. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. But first, let's create a scene. now that we have everything all set up here, let's talk about what's going on. So we have the foundation of the scene, which is the butcher block. It kind of makes it feel as if it's like maybe on a desk or a table of some sort. And then we have a piece of burlap to add some texture to the scene, maybe some rustic feels to it. And then we have a pair of glasses, a notebook, a key fob, which is helping prop up the wallet, but it also goes with the scene. And then we have the wallet, which is the main subject, a film camera, and then a knife sheath. And then on foam core A, this is acting as the background, it's keeping everything nice and dark. So it's really going to just kind of just blend into the whole thing. And then foam core B is acting as a flag. Now a flag is a tool that you can use in photo or video, what have you, to help manipulate the light. So this is blocking the light coming from the door, but the slit is acting as just a little sliver of light to just touch the main subject. And then over here we have a nice piece of warm fill light coming in just to help accent the scene. Now you don't need to use the specific light that I have, which is the Nanlite Lido Light 5C, I believe. Don't quote me on it, but you don't need to use this. You can just use whatever you have in your arsenal, or come up with a nice DIY little setup. But this is what I have, so this is what I'm using. Oh yeah, not sponsored, of course. But now that I have everything all set up here, let's start shooting. So let's throw them in a Lightroom, check them out, and do some editing. So after I imported all of the images, I decided to go with this one. Next, I threw a little preset onto it, did a bit of exposure corrections in the basic panel. Next, I went to my tone curves and worked my curves a little bit. After that, I brought up my saturation a little bit. Then I went to my contrast slider and I removed a little bit of contrast, because I feel like the contrast slider is like a blanket of contrast, and it just works as an overall feel of contrast rather than the tone curve. It's just my way of doing things. Next, I went to the temperature slider and I brought up some warmth, and then I went to the HSL section and worked with the yellows and the oranges, because there's a lot of yellows and oranges going on in the image. Next, I toyed around with the color grading wheels, and then I did some sharpening. Next, it was time to work the light, so to speak, so I went into the masking tools and I brought up a radial filter, then inverted it, and then I brought down the exposure, thus darkening those edges a little bit to drive the eye more towards the wallet. Then I added another radial filter to bump up the exposure just a little bit to really make the wallet pop on where I want the eye to be driven towards. And I also added a little bit of sharpness. I never really go anymore between 15 and 25 with this. Next, I wanted to emphasize on where the light was coming from, so I brought a linear mask from the right side of the frame over and bumped up some exposure. And then the same thing on the left side of the frame, just not as much because there's not a lot of light coming on the left side, but more so on the right side. And then after that, I selected the wallet as a select subject tool, and then I brightened it up a little bit, added some sharpening, some texture, some clarity, a little bit of dehaze because I like how the contrast works with that, and then of course the contrast slider, just a bump, and then of course brought up the shadows a little bit. Next, I darkened the foreground, and then I worked within the owl logo. Now I messed up a couple times, but I did my best with what I could here. And then I added some light at the bottom right corner of the wallet itself, where a lot of that light is from where that slit is in the flag, so to speak. Next, I added some green, and then I cleaned up the wallet, and here we go. This is before, and this is after. Now, if you want to check out a little bit more of Chris's work, you can check out his Instagram at goldenowlsupply.co. You can scroll down through his grid, you can check out the images that he's taken, some other people have taken for him, and a lot of the products that he's put out. Heck, you can also comment on their hashtag Mikey sent me. He'll know who sent you. Actually, let's make that a thing. You know, just like how we did back on Jess's grid. Yeah, hashtag Mikey sent me. Speaking of his website, if you do like any of the stuff that he puts out and you want something for yourself, you can head on over to goldenowlsupplyco.com, go to the shop, and you can scroll down through what he has in stock and what he can make for you. And I think he, don't quote me on it, I think he can even possibly do something custom. But if he does, reach out and see what he can do for you. But anyways, that is it for me today, folks. If you liked hanging out with me, if you like learning something new, if you did learn something new, if you like this little method that I and many other people use as well, remember to destroy the like button. It makes a huge difference. Hit up the comment section down below. We could converse, talk, whatever. If you have not yet, you should subscribe and hit the notification bell while you're at it. That way you're notified every time that I post something. And don't forget, bear those summits and just explore. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.